Hello Year 3 and welcome to your second science lesson. Today we're going to be looking at reflective surfaces and we're actually going to do an investigation about which surfaces reflect light and to create a fair test. Now hopefully you can think back to our very smelly investigation where we did the 10-second food drop and remember what we said a fair test is. Now we will cover this a little bit later on in the PowerPoint in the lesson, but I do just want you to just take a second now to see if you can remember what a fair test is. Okay, so like I said, we are going to be doing reflective materials, so we're going to be looking at which materials best reflect light. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch the use of reflective materials for safety, and whilst we're watching this little clip I want you to think about what does it look like if a material reflects light well, which colours do you think reflect most light, and what are reflective materials useful for. So thinking about where you might see reflective materials, where people will use reflective materials, and we'll use it quite a lot for safety. So we're just going to watch this. It is on the BBC website, so if you did want to go and have another little look at reflection and light, BBC is really good for little clips for you to watch. So we're just going to watch this one.
If you're going to be out in the dark, it's a really good idea to wear clothes that reflect light well, so you can be seen easily. Different colours reflect different amounts of light, and the material a piece of clothing is made from may affect how light is reflected. The yellow jacket seems much brighter than the dark red one. You can see it more clearly because it reflects more light. But some materials can behave surprisingly. This grey jacket doesn't seem to reflect very much light. Even with the headlamp shining, it doesn't look very bright seen from this angle. But seen from a driver's point of view, the bands show up really well. That's because these bands are made out of a special material which reflects light in a particular way. Light from the headlights is scattered in all directions by the yellow jacket. But when the light from the headlamps reflects off the bands, it all reflects back down the same path, straight to the driver's eyes. Because more reflected light reaches the driver's eyes, it looks much brighter. The material the bands are made from is called retroreflective. The light from the car headlamps falls on a road sign, but from the roadside the effect isn't very special. But look at the view from inside the car. The signs look really bright. Nearly all the light from the car headlamps is reflected back off the sign to the driver's eyes. That's because the signs are made from retroreflective material too. But even the best reflective gear doesn't work if there's no light source at all.
Okay, so hopefully you have learnt about retroreflective materials that we use in science for cars and for jackets. If you are a motorcyclist or you're on the road, you work on the road, road safety people, the fire brigade do. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So, as the video clip said, light travels in a straight line. So when light hits an object, it then reflects, it bounces off, and if the reflected light hits our eyes, we can then see the object that is being reflected. So light from the torch hits the object and then it reflects from the object into our eyes. Some surfaces and materials reflect light well, other materials do not reflect light well. reflective surfaces and materials can be very useful, as we have just looked at with the clip. So we have reflective strips on coats or bags, which means that you can be seen at night. They are also useful for firefighters or builders who may work in dark and dangerous environments. So if you have a little think about where you have seen these reflective strips, I keep saying stripes, but they're kind of like stripes, on places. I know some of you have little reflectors where you have dangling objects off your bag. That's really good, because if you're walking home or walking to school in the morning and it is a little bit dark, it means that cars can see you, because your reflector is making that light bounce off back into their eyes from their car. Cat's eyes on the roads, you mostly see these in on the motorway, but they help drivers see the road by reflecting light from their headlamps. Again, it's those headlamps, they are helping the drivers see at night, and it really helps with the reflective materials that they use on road signs and cat's eyes to help the drivers see. Mirrors, they're very good reflectors, let us see ourselves, and are also useful in cars to allow drivers to see behind them. So you can't keep turning around to do this, so you have that mirror and you have your two side mirrors as well. That helps you see behind you when you are driving. And as we said, the road signs, and you saw in the clip, that retro reflectors, the materials that they use are really good for road signs, because at night time it's really hard to see the signs unless it has those retro reflectors in them, so you can see it with your car lamps. So what we're going to do is we're going to investigate the best materials that we can use for to reflect that light. So in order to test the materials, you will need to make a reflection tester. So you need to attach a piece of white card to a torch. Now this is my tester. So this is my reflection tester. So I cut a hole in the middle, and I actually slid it up from there, so I know that as I push it through, that the card fits snugly around the torch, so I won't have to hold it. As you can see, I'm moving it around and it's not falling off. So you want to see if you can do that. Hopefully you've all got a torch at home and you've got some sort of white card or a couple of bits of white paper will help. And you'll see why it's going to be white, because it just helps the reflection really stand out. And then what you're going to need to do is shine the torch at a material that you are testing. Now I've got two materials here that I'm going to be testing. I've got my spoon, and I also have a foam board, which is one of my placemats. So I've got a spoon and a foam board, and they're the materials that I'm just going to let you see and show you how it works. So if the material reflects light well, you will see the reflected light shine through the white card and light it up. So if I'm going to show you that, I just need to turn the light off. So I'm going to turn my torch on. So as you can see, it's nice and bright. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it so the torch is facing that way, so you can see it much better, clearer what's going to happen. So I'm just going to show you what happens when I put the foam through it. Okay, can you see there's no reflection? You can't see any light coming up on the white card. But if I put my spoon there, you can see that it's making a lovely reflection. It's lighting up that card really well. Now I'll show you again with the foam. No reflection on the card. And then the spoon again. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a clue as to what materials will help you. So let's run through our investigation. So we always start off with a question. So what are we trying to find out? We are trying to find out what materials reflect light better. So we want to find the best material to reflect that light. So on your sheet that is on Year 3 Churchill website, I will also show it to you on the next slide. You need to fill in your question, so what materials reflect light better, and then you need to write your prediction. So you need to write what you think, which materials you think will reflect the light better than other materials. So you might want to tell me which materials you don't think will reflect light better and the materials that will. So just having a little prediction of what you think will happen. It's always best to predict first, so then you can write this up in your conclusion. Okay, the next thing you need to fill in is what resources do you need. So you're definitely going to need a torch and some white cards, so you can pop that down straight away. And then you need to choose materials that you are going to choose for your test. Now you can use 6 materials if you that's me, I'm so sorry. Oh dear. So you need to choose 6 materials because it will be really nice to see if you can get any. You can use a spoon, you can use a piece of clothing, a pillow. I was looking at my bin earlier, you could use that, see if that works. My bin is stainless steel. You can use a bit of wood, anything you can find around the house that you can use to shine your torch on will be really good. Okay, now we come back to the fair test. So what is a fair test? So a fair test is when you keep all of the things the same apart from one. So you will have one thing changing each time in your test. Now what do you think that thing is going to be that you are going to change? Just have a little think, give it a pause. Hopefully you've realised that it is going to be your materials. So you are changing the materials every time. You are keeping your reflection tester the same, and you should keep it at the same sort of distance that you hold the item to, the material to the torch. So that should all be the same. Everything should be the same, and that's how it will be kept a fair test. Because the only thing that you're changing, which is what you want to find out, is the different materials. Everything else should be kept the same. And then you need to fill in your method. So how will you carry out this test? Well, you will need to create your own reflection tester, find the 6 materials you would like to do, then you are just going to shine your torch onto your material, and you are going to see if you get the reflection so it lights up the white card. That is how you are going to carry out your test. And then your final part of the investigation is the results. So what are your findings? What materials did you find worked better and were really good at reflecting light? So we're just going to have a little look at the worksheet you'll be using. So as you can see, you've got your question. So fill in your question. What material reflects light better? Or which material reflects light better? Then your prediction, so what you think is going to happen. Then you can bullet point your resources in there. Obviously, because if you're at home, you're going to have different resources to everybody else, because it's what you can find at home. And then you just need to bullet point them in. But do not forget, you definitely need a light source and a piece of white card or a couple of bits of white paper to help that you see that reflection, it lights the paper up. And then how would you keep this a fair test? So I will change the materials used. I will keep the same reflection tester and the same distance to the light as well as you can. Okay, and then the last part of your sheet is the method, so just writing the steps, what you're going to do. And then we've got a table of results. So this is where you put in the materials that you have chosen. And then you just need to tick or cross if it gives a reflection, if it lights up the card or not. And then your little results there, I have found that materials that are, and then you need to tell me what materials are, what you have found are best used for reflecting the light. And then we come on to our final section. How are all reflective surfaces similar? So some of you have been thinking about the ways in which all reflective materials are similar. Fingers crossed. What I want you to do is think about how do they look similar. So what about those materials that you have used are similar to the materials that will reflect the light? So if you think about this, the spoon, and other objects that you found that reflect light, how do they feel similar? So what do they feel like? Okay, have a feel of them. Do they feel the same or are they different? What's their texture like? And then you can share your thoughts with the class. So if you're at home, you can use the Discord app to talk to the green class or emerald class about what you have found about the materials that reflect light the most. And then we'll obviously do that in class as well. So I really hope you enjoy this lesson and enjoy doing a little home investigation with different objects that you'll find in the home. Really think carefully about those 6 objects that you choose. Try and change it up, but also have some that are slightly similar, just so then it helps you with your final conclusion of what reflective surfaces or materials the best ones are going to be. I hope you've enjoyed this PowerPoint and you've enjoyed the lesson and find some really interesting results. I look forward to seeing your work and I hope you have a really good week of home learning, and I will see you all on Friday for your next art lesson.